He rejected his own wife 99 times. Not strangers, not lovers, but the woman who shared his bed, his name, and 3 silent years of marriage. He told her she was nothing, chased her out of his life like she was disposable. But when she finally walked away, taking her love, her dignity, and a secret he never saw coming, his world collapsed. If you believe love stories should hurt before they heal, regret should come with a price, and karma should arrive right on time, subscribe now. You don't want to miss what happens when a man realizes too late that the woman he broke was the only one who ever truly loved him. For 3 years, their marriage existed like a shadow, present, unavoidable, but utterly devoid of warmth, and every night Amelia learned a new way silence could hurt more than words as she lay beside Ethan Hale, her legally bound husband, a man who had never once held her willingly, never once kissed her without pulling away, never once looked at her like she belonged to him, and yet somehow found endless energy to reject her in ways so sharp and deliberate they felt counted, catalogued, as if he needed proof of how thoroughly he could erase her existence. The first rejection came on their wedding night when she reached for his hand with trembling hope and he coldly stepped away, saying he was tired, saying this marriage was a formality, saying she should not expect anything more, and Amelia told herself it was nerves, that tomorrow would be different, that love sometimes arrived late, but tomorrow became weeks, and weeks became months, and by the time she realized Ethan's indifference was intentional, she had already been rejected more times than she could remember, until one night, broken and desperate, she began to count them, because counting pain felt easier than drowning in it. Ethan was not cruel in loud ways. He was devastating in quiet ones, turning away when she spoke, leaving the room when she entered, answering her attempts at conversation with clipped politeness as if she were a distant colleague rather than his wife, and when she cooked meals he never touched, dressed carefully hoping he might notice, waited up late for him only to hear the door close and his footsteps retreat into a separate bedroom. She told herself she could endure it, because endurance felt like love when you had nothing else. The marriage itself had been arranged through obligation and legacy, 2 powerful families bound by reputation rather than affection, and Ethan had made it clear from the beginning that Amelia was never his choice, merely a responsibility he planned to tolerate, not cherish, and each rejection carried its own weight. The time she tried to hug him after his father's funeral and he stiffened, pushed her away, and told her not to pretend they were close, the night she whispered that she loved him and he responded with silence so complete it felt like mockery, the morning she asked if they could try counseling and he laughed, not loudly, but with enough disbelief to make her cheeks burn. By the time she reached rejection number 40, Amelia stopped crying where he could see it, locking herself in the bathroom, pressing a towel against her mouth so the sobs wouldn't escape, staring at her reflection and wondering how a woman could disappear while still breathing, while Ethan continued living his life untouched, successful, admired, praised for his discipline and integrity, never once questioned about the wife who walked half a step behind him at events, smiling politely while being introduced as if she were a decorative detail rather than a human being. Rejection 57 came quietly, on her birthday, when she waited alone at a restaurant for 2 hours before the waiter gently asked if she wanted to order or leave. And she paid the bill with shaking hands before returning home to find Ethan asleep, his phone glowing with unread messages from her, and she realized something inside her had cracked beyond repair. By rejection 70, Amelia stopped asking for affection altogether, stopped initiating conversations, stopped hoping, because hope had become humiliating, and yet even then Ethan found ways to push her further away, telling her not to wait up, not to worry about his schedule, not to involve herself in his life, until rejection 99 arrived not with shouting or anger, but with finality, when she stood in the doorway of his study and told him she couldn't live like this anymore, that she needed space, needed air, needed something to change, and Ethan didn't even look up from his laptop as he said, "If you're unhappy, leave," as if she were asking permission to return a defective product. That was the moment Amelia realized she had already been gone for a long time, that the woman who entered this marriage believing love could be built had died quietly under the weight of indifference, and as she packed her suitcase that night, folding clothes with hands that no longer shook, she didn't cry, didn't hesitate, didn't look back, because something far more dangerous than sadness had settled into her chest, resolve. Ethan barely noticed her absence at first. The house was quieter, yes, but it had always been quiet, and the routines continued uninterrupted, until small things began to unsettle him. The way no one replaced the coffee filter, the way his ties were no longer ironed just the way he liked, the way the house felt colder despite the thermostat unchanged, and then one evening he reached for a file in his study and found a notebook instead, thin, worn, filled with neat handwriting, and on the first page were the words that made his breath stop for the first time in 3 years, 99 rejections. "I'm done counting." The day Amelia left, Ethan's life did not shatter instantly. It unraveled slowly, a quiet disintegration that made him feel as if the ground beneath him had become unstable, as if every familiar corner of the house had been replaced with shadows and echoes. At first, he went through the motions, waking at the same time, walking to the same office, attending the same meetings, smiling in the same way at people who had always admired him, but the hollow rhythm of his days began to gnaw at him. Simple things triggered memories he had never wanted to acknowledge. The scent of her perfume left lingering on the bathroom counter, a cup she had used and forgotten in the sink, the faint echo of her laughter from a room that now felt cavernous and cold. For the first time, Ethan felt the weight of his own indifference pressing down like a hand on his chest, suffocating him, and he began noticing things he had always dismissed. The empty side of the bed where her warmth had been, the way his clothes hung loosely on his shoulders because there was no one to care if he looked perfect, the silence that filled spaces where her voice had once been a gentle, persistent presence. But it was not just absence that unsettled him, it was realization. Slowly, the magnitude of his mistakes pressed upon him like an unstoppable tide. Every rejection, every dismissal, every refusal he had delivered with such casual precision replayed in his mind with unbearable clarity, and the truth he had long buried hit him with a force that no success, no accolades, no polished reputation could shield him from. He had destroyed the one person who had ever truly cared for him. Friends noticed the change almost immediately. Ethan, who had always been calm, composed, seemingly untouchable, began arriving late, forgetting meetings, making uncharacteristic mistakes, and no one could understand why the man who had never shown emotion in public now looked perpetually haunted, distracted, almost fragile. One evening, he found himself standing in front of a photo on the mantel, Amelia smiling, arm looped through his, oblivious to the storm he had been carrying inside himself, and for the first time, Ethan felt the raw, bitter sting of regret. That night, he tried to call her, but his fingers froze over the phone. He typed messages and deleted them, rehearsed apologies that never left his lips, and when sleep came, it brought only dreams of her, vivid and cruel, of her walking away, of the suitcase in her hand, of the glimmer of determination in her eyes that had always terrified him when he had dismissed it. As days turned into weeks, Ethan became obsessed, not with finding her, not even with love, but with understanding what he had done, with mapping every moment where his arrogance and cruelty had pushed her further from him. He hired investigators, retraced the streets she used to walk, inquired at places she might have gone, and each dead end worsened the ache in his chest. Then, the first twist arrived, unbidden, unplanned, like fate laughing at him. He discovered that Amelia had not merely left town, she had transformed herself. She had taken a temporary job at a company he had once considered insignificant, started volunteering at shelters he had ignored, and through social media glimpses, he saw her confidence, her radiance, her smile that now belonged fully to herself. The woman who had been broken, invisible, 99 times rejected, was thriving, and every image of her joy struck him like a personal indictment. Then came the unexpected confrontation, a twist Ethan had never anticipated, because the world had conspired to make him face the consequences directly. A business gala, months later, where Amelia was the keynote speaker for a charity project, radiant, confident, commanding attention effortlessly, and Ethan was forced into the same room, introduced as if by coincidence, and he felt something crack in his chest, the recognition that the woman he had spent years ignoring and hurting now owned the room, owned life, and he owned nothing but remorse. He approached her, fumbling through words he had rehearsed 1,000 times in solitude, only to be stopped by her gaze, cool, measured, unyielding, and in her eyes, Ethan saw the reflection of the man he had become, desperate, diminished, undone by his own hands. She listened to his apology, not with warmth, but with the quiet strength of someone who had survived a storm, someone who had turned pain into power, someone who had chosen herself when he had failed to. And here, another twist cut deeper than he could have imagined. She revealed she had been keeping a journal, one that chronicled not only her suffering but the lessons she had learned, the boundaries she had enforced, the inner strength she had cultivated, and she had planned, intentionally, to read excerpts from it at the gala, ensuring Ethan understood the full scope of what he had lost. Each passage was like a dagger, every line a mirror reflecting his failings. That night, Ethan left the gala humiliated, shattered, and obsessed with the thought that no amount of money, influence, or charm could ever repair what had been broken, because she had already built a life in which he had no place. Yet, the deeper twist lurked beneath the surface. While Ethan fell into despair, she had begun to notice cracks in her own world, challenges she had never anticipated, forces beyond her control, reminding her that life is never without obstacles, and that even as she had claimed independence, love, loyalty, and forgiveness could still emerge in unpredictable ways. For Ethan, regret became a constant companion. For Amelia, resilience became a shield. But fate had not yet finished writing their story, because in the web of decisions, missed opportunities, and unspoken truths, there remained a single, fateful thread connecting them, waiting for a moment that would test everything they thought they knew about love, betrayal, and the price of rejection. The final chapter of Ethan's reckoning began not with a grand gesture, but with a small, almost imperceptible unraveling of everything he had once believed was untouchable in his life. His work, his reputation, even his carefully constructed sense of self seemed to falter under the weight of Amelia's absence and the relentless clarity of his own failures. Weeks turned into months, and every attempt to reach her, every call, every message, every carefully crafted email, was ignored or met with polite but firm boundaries, and each refusal, each silence, etched a new layer of despair into Ethan's heart. It was at this point that the first real twist struck. He learned, by chance, that Amelia had quietly become a partner in a venture he had once dismissed, a charity program she had rebuilt from scratch, touching lives, creating hope, gaining admiration not just locally but internationally, and seeing her name in headlines, paired with achievements that bore her signature diligence, reminded him in painful, unrelenting clarity that the woman he had tried to ignore had already outgrown him in every possible way. He attended yet another gala, not by coincidence but by an obsessive urge to see her, and for the first time, he realized that the woman before him no longer belonged to the version of the world he had once known. She radiated independence, confidence, and a quiet authority that made his attempts at apology seem feeble and hollow. And then came the confrontation, the climax he had both feared and yearned for. He approached her, voice trembling, admitting everything, the 99 times he had rejected her, the cruelty he had inflicted, the years he had wasted, the life he had nearly destroyed, and in response, she remained calm, composed, a mirror of the strength he had never recognized, and told him, without bitterness but with undeniable truth, that forgiveness was her gift, not his entitlement, and that redemption required action, not words. The second twist hit harder than the first. She revealed that during the months apart, she had received countless proposals, offers, and opportunities that would have made any other man envious, yet she had chosen to focus on herself first, to reclaim the dignity and happiness he had denied her, proving that the real power was in walking away, in refusing to settle for less than she deserved. Ethan, desperate, began a series of attempts to rebuild trust, small gestures, meaningful letters, acts of genuine care, but Amelia, having learned the hard lesson of her own heart, tested each step carefully, ensuring that his remorse was authentic, that his understanding of her worth was complete, and that he would never again take her for granted. Then came the revelation that turned his world upside down. While he had been obsessed with reclaiming her love, she had secretly recorded her journey through the past 3 years, compiling moments of his rejection alongside her triumphs and resilience, planning to present it not to humiliate him, but as a testament to the human capacity to rise above cruelty. And when he watched the presentation, he felt the bitterest mixture of awe and shame, seeing his failings displayed with unflinching honesty, juxtaposed with her unwavering strength. The final twist, crueler than any he could have imagined, came when she announced her next move. Amelia had been offered a position abroad, an opportunity that would elevate her career, her influence, and her life in ways Ethan could not compete with, and she had decided to accept it, not out of spite, but because she had discovered that life's greatest victories belong to those who seize them, who refuse to be held back by past pain, who understand that love is not about possession but about respect, and that sometimes, leaving is the only proof of true power. Ethan's regret now had no immediate remedy. He realized, bitterly, that love cannot be forced, that apologies cannot undo years of rejection, and that sometimes, the one who walks away is the one who teaches the deepest lessons, not by returning, but by leaving. In the final moments of their story, they shared a brief conversation, a quiet acknowledgement of what had been lost and what had been learned, and Ethan felt a shattering clarity. She was the only woman he had ever truly loved, and he had driven her away with the arrogance of indifference. He watched her leave for the airport, a suitcase in one hand, a radiant smile on her face, and the wind seemed to carry with it every moment he had squandered, every word left unspoken, every rejection that had accumulated into 99, and for the first time, he understood that regret is not measured by tears, by apologies, or by longing. It is measured by the irreplaceable absence of the one who mattered most, the one whose love he had failed to recognize until it was too late. And so, Ethan remained, surrounded by the hollow echo of his own choices, a man transformed not by victory, but by the bitterest, most unyielding teacher of all, loss. Amelia, on the other hand, walked into her new life, free from the shadow of rejection, stronger, wiser, and luminous in her understanding that leaving had been the ultimate act of love. for herself, for her future, and even, in a paradox of fate, for the man who had once rejected her 99 times. The story concluded not with reunion, but with understanding, a testament to the price of indifference and the power of courage, proving that sometimes the greatest love story is not the one that ends together, but the one that ends with one person finally claiming their worth, while the other is left to carry the weight of bitter regret for the rest of their life.